What is up, YouTube? My name is Eben, and today we're going to be talking on the edge about Malamar. This is a promo Malamar. You can buy a blister pack, which is 3 boosters, and get this promo at your local giant mega grocery market store thing. And this guy is pretty interesting. He's a stage 1, he's a regular old Malamar. He's 90 HP, he's got a 2 energy retreat, but that's really fine because what we're here for is his ability, which only works when he's in the active slot. So really in a lot of ways, we're just as happy him staying active as not. And what his ability Contrary does is pretty interesting. He makes, as long as he's active, he makes all your opponent's coin tosses for everything just automatically come up tails during their turn. That means items, that means supporters, that means Pokemon abilities, that means attacks, all of them, automatically, all of them come up tails. I mean, this guy is the king of fail, but for your opponent, which is kind of cool. Now, he does have an attack, and since he's going to be in the active slot, we do need to take a look at that, which is 1 dark and 2 colorless, which is 2 colorless is always nice in an energy cost. It's Conform, it's 40 damage, but if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, which isn't too hard to imagine setting up, your opponent's active Pokemon is automatically confused, which, okay, that's pretty nice. Oh, and he does also have a primal trait Theta Stop, which makes him immune to the effects of your opponent's Pokemon abilities, but not your own Pokemon, which is kind of nice. So what kind of things are we going to be stopping here? Well, obviously any Pokemon with a coin toss and its attack is automatically going to be getting the bad side of it, which is kind of nice, and there are a few Pokemon in our meta that applies to. But some of the main cards we're thinking about are cards like these. Crushing Hammer doesn't ever remove energy as long as Malamar is up. He's going to contrary that thing to always miss, so it's basically worthless in your opponent's hand, which a lot of decks do like cards like that and need cards like that. Super Scoop Up, I think bats are not going to enjoy the fact that they will never be able to retrieve their bats ever again as long as Malamar is active. And Professor Birch's Observations is just a weaker Shauna, essentially, as long as Malamar is out. And those are some nice things to consider. Those are great ways to disrupt your opponent. That, and of course, like I say, any Pokemon who relies on coin tosses is just going to fail, which is quite nice. Now, like I say, Conform uses double colorless energy, or potentially does, which is always very nice. That's good support. Speaking of support, 90 HP isn't necessarily a handicap, because remember, Level Ball just got printed in Ancient Origins, so that actually makes Malamar more searchable, so that you can get him up and contrarying your opponent pretty quickly. And he also, as a stage 1, goes very well with the new evolutions, meaning you can, using Vaporeon or its cousins Flareon and Jolteon, you can make Malamar turn into other Pokemon types so that his 40 damage Conform can easily turn into 80, and with pretty much guaranteed confusion as long as you can be a little creative with your hand, playing items and supporters, and not sometimes. Like I say, that's not too hard to imagine. You can very easily set up situations where you're basically putting your opponent in a very difficult spot, 2-hit KOing things potentially, especially if you can slap a muscle band on there. And don't forget cards like Training Center that can help us keep Malamar around for a little while. Of course, there are Pokemon like Wobbuffet that would normally pose a threat to you, but thanks to Theta Stop, Malamar will be completely immune to Wobbuffet's effect, even though Malamar is a Dark type and not a Psychic type because he's unaffected by your opponent's Pokemon abilities. So that's another thing. Oh yeah, and like I said, you remember how bats already don't really care for Malamar because of Super Scoop Up and the fact that you can block it completely? Well, how do you like the fact that the bats also can't even deal any damage to Malamar with their abilities because of his Theta Stop? Just one more way that Malamar pretty much completely shuts down the bats as long as he stays active, which is pretty impressive. And another new supporting card that's liable to see a lot of use in the coming months is Ariados. And while Malamar isn't protected from your own Ariados, it is protected from an opponent's Ariados, who may be wanting to paralyze Malamar, especially if, say, Seismitoad EX is active, trying to get some damage on. There's no way he's going to be poisoned because it's an opponent's Pokemon ability. Therefore, they might be able to poison their own Toad, but they won't be able to poison Malamar, which is pretty gosh darn nice. Now, the meta may change, so this card doesn't necessarily have a place, but the good news about it is this card will almost surely always have a growing place in our metagame, because an ability like Contrary will only ever gain new cards with each set that it blocks. It will never really lose things that it is effective against. So it's one of those cards to always keep in the back of your mind, because many opponents will not consider it. But if you do consider it, and the meta is ever right, you can easily sweep up a tournament with a tech like this. So anyway, until next time, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Twitter if you haven't already. You can find all kinds of little goodies in there and find out about stuff I'm going to post before I post it. And I will see you all next time.